Hi there, folks. It's book review time. Hi, Tilly. Yes, I'm talking to myself again. It worries her. So, in my last book review, I said that I would be reviewing Philippa Gregory's Dawnlands. But when I bought Dawnlands, I kind of pounced on it. I saw it in a supermarket, and because it's Philippa Gregory, I just bought it without realizing that it was the third in a trilogy. And some of you lovely subscribers pointed out to me that it might be better to read the other two first. I did check to see if these books could be read as standalones, but actually, no, they do need to be read in sequence. And so I immediately bought the first two books in the trilogy, and I have been reading the first one, which is Tidelands. Wow. Philippa Gregory is an expert in women's history. She's been studying women's history all through her life, I think. And you probably know, if you've read Philippa Gregory, that she has mostly concentrated on wealthy women in the royal court. We all know her Tudor books. She has mostly written about women in the higher echelons of society. But these are very different. The setting Philippa Gregory has used is very clever. Eleanor Reiki, the main character, is a poor woman who lives on the edge of the coastline on a place called Sealsea Island, which we now know as Selsey Island, which is a small little island place very close to the Isle of Wight, just off the coast of the south of England. And she lives in a small, basic little house with her two children on the edge on this place called the Tidelands. It is a place, it is a dangerous place because as the tide comes in and out, the land changes. So you never know quite where you are, and you have to know very well the places where you can walk, which she does. It's very, very symbolic of the state of the country where people just didn't quite know where they were, because it's set at the time just towards the end of the civil wars in England, and Charles I had basically been defeated and was now in exile on the Isle of Wight. So if you were a royalist, and if you were a royalist, you were generally a Catholic as well. So if you were a royalist and a Catholic, these were very dangerous times. So she's chosen that symbolic sort of shifting sands territory as symbolic of that state of affairs in the country. The main character, Eleanor Reiki, she's a woman who also in her own life, she doesn't quite know where she is, because some time ago her husband deserted her, and she does not know whether she's a widow or whether she is still a wife. At the start of the novel, on Midsummer's Eve, she has gone at midnight to see if she could see her husband's ghost, which would tell her whether or not she was a widow. And of course, that's a superstition of the time, that if your husband was dead, you would see his ghost on Midsummer's Eve at the church. But instead of seeing her husband's ghost, she finds a man who is looking for somewhere to hide. And they meet, they speak. He decides to confide in her that he is a royalist and a Catholic sent to rescue King Charles from the Isle of Wight, and is supposed to be staying with the local lord of the manor, but for some reason or another he is not there, and he's now looking for a place to hide. And so Eleanor decides to help him, and so that starts off a chain of events. We also know that Eleanor is a midwife and a healer. Now, of course, at these times, a woman who was a healer could very often be held in suspicion of witchcraft. And that is one of the dangers that faces her. And now, of course, we see at the beginning of the book that she is placing herself in some danger by hiding who is known to be a Catholic priest. So all throughout the book, there are these hints of danger. And of course, she and James, the Catholic, they fall in love, which creates more complications. They keep their love secret, of course. And we also see the attempt of James to rescue King Charles from the Isle of Wight, which is not really a spoiler if I tell you that it doesn't quite work out, because we all know what happened to Charles I in the end. And that's very interesting reading, what happens there, and tells us a lot about the character of Charles I as well. More danger occurs, of course, when Eleanor and James have their secret affair and she becomes pregnant. In society at that time, a woman who became pregnant out of wedlock, or obviously if her husband was not around, was branded as a whore. So we can see all through the novel, Eleanor is not on safe ground. Things seem to go well for her children. Her son is asked to be a companion to the son of Sir William Peachy, the Lord of the Manor. Her daughter becomes engaged to the son of a local farmer. But we know there is that element all the way through the novel. You feel the danger all around. And it's not until really the very last pages of the novel that things really, really heat up. And I'm not going to say any more than that. But the last few pages were absolutely riveting. One of the things I loved about this book was the strong sense of the setting itself. In fact, in the first few pages, when Eleanor meets James and she guides him across the Tidelands, the description of that setting was so good, so intense, that when I finally looked up from the book, I was almost surprised to find myself in my comfortable room, in my comfortable house, in some warmth and comfort. And of course, as usual with Philippa Gregory, as I say, she is an expert in women's history. So I loved this very different kind of story for her about a woman on the opposite end of the social scale to the kind she usually writes about. And it's really fascinating. It really does make you thankful to be living in the 21st century to some extent. I really loved the character of Eleanor. She may be a very poor woman, a woman of some superstition, as most people were at that time, but a very intelligent woman, a very caring woman, but one who is much misunderstood in many ways by those around her. The book has a very strong feel of the period, of the fears of people at the time, the shock and the horror of the wars they had just been through and what happens to King Charles I. You really do get immersed in that period and what it means to people on that lower social scale. And of course, how dangerous it was to be a woman in that time. It's interesting reading all the way through. There are some exciting moments, but as I say, the last few pages are incredibly gripping, and I'm looking forward to reading the next in the trilogy, which is Dark Tides. But I won't be reading that straight away because I'm really looking forward to it. I kind of want to, but I do want to get on with some of the other books on my TBR. That is my review of Tidelands. Yes, absolutely recommended. Philippa Gregory at her historical best. A book about what it was to be a poor woman in the 17th century. And don't forget that you will want to be buying all 3 books. So there we go. So Tidelands, Dark Tides, and then Dawnlands. And I shall, once I get round to those, I will be reviewing them in turn. The next book I'm going to be reviewing, possibly 2 or 3 weeks' time, is Ken Follett's A Dangerous Fortune. Now, I've never read Ken Follett before, and he's a very popular historical novelist, but I have heard some criticisms about him, so I just wanted to see for myself. So I'll be interested to read this and report back to you how I feel. I must thank all my new subscribers. I just hit 6,000, so that's absolutely marvellous. I didn't expect to get to so many subscribers by this time, so I am very, very grateful. And if you're not subscribed, then please do so. Yes, you tell them. And I think it's probably time for a summer book list soon, perhaps. So make sure that you are subscribed, and I will be trawling through some good summer reads soon. Cheers for now.